Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of No Frontiers Japan. My name's Luke and today we're reacting to One Piece's live action on Netflix and it's episode number 7 and it's called The Girl with the Sawfish Tattoo. Opening scene of this episode we have the Straw Hat crew, well, the crew minus Nami, and they're trying to get her back. But we have one other passenger. Well, the head of a passenger, and that's Buggy. We need to talk about this. There are rules around Buggy's devil fruit usage. As you've seen, it's already quite powerful, the fact that he can separate different parts of his body, but there's a certain radius and rules around where Buggy can actually use his body parts and where they can actually levitate and float. And we saw that Buggy was actually brought in the previous episode to the Baratie by Arlong. And the issue I have is, number one, first of all, as we saw, Arlong, he's swimming in the water. He's swimming in the water from, I guess, Arlong Park to the Baratie, but then they obviously have Buggy's head in a bag. So they actually swam with Buggy's head underwater? How did he survive? I don't know. We never get any answers to that question. But another issue we have is the rule around Buggy's devil fruit usage is there's a 200 beti, or, well, I guess maybe like a 200 meter radius around his feet. His feet are the only part that cannot actually levitate. They always have to be on the ground at all times. And around the radius of his feet, his body parts can levitate. And outside of that radius, they can't actually fly anywhere. So we know that it's confirmed later that Buggy's body parts, or the rest of his body, is actually in Arlong Park, but they brought his head to Baratie, and then we find out that he actually knew Luffy was there because he had kept the ear, he's got eyes and ears everywhere, and the ear was in Luffy's hat, and then we know it's still floating. Now, we never see the head actually floating, so that would be in line with Buggy's power because the head is so far away from his body, but the ear actually popped out of Luffy's hat and flew back onto Buggy. So we know that already. Right now, they're not staying true to the rules of Buggy's power. I have an issue with that. It's really not necessary to just not follow the rules around his power. Next up, we have a scene where Luffy is actually concerned about Nami. I'm not a big fan of this because it's really not true to Luffy's character. Yes, he will defend his friends, but when it comes to the motivation and reasons and the past history of people, Luffy actually doesn't care about any of that. He doesn't care what your history is. All he cares about is who you are now, how can he help you reach your dreams. That's all Luffy cares about. So him being worried about Nami, having the darkness on his face, I don't think that's accurate at all. But I do like how he said, when they talked about why Nami left them, he said, I need to hear it from her. That's correct. That is totally correct. So that was good. Next cut is to a dreamy scene where we actually see Belle-Mère, who is the adoptive mother of Nami and Nojiko, her sister, or her adopted sister as well. They're both children, and Belle-Mère, who at the time in the past was a Marine, she finds them in a wreckage, and she's a survivor, and she decides to take them both in as children and adopt them. Belle-Mère is actually a French word for belle, beautiful, mère, mother, so beautiful mother. What I actually quite like about this scene is the fact that it's done in a very dreamy way, but then immediately cuts to Arlong Park, and Nami's staring at the face of one of those ugly fishmen. I think the fishmen are quite ugly. I'm not crazy about the prosthetics that was done. I know it's very hard because if you don't do the prosthetics the way they did it for the fishmen, you really have to use a lot of CGI. I don't know if that was in the budget for the CGI. I don't know about any of that stuff, but I assume that's also a reason why Arlong's nose is so short compared to in the anime. At the same time with Arlong, he should be much more blue. In this live action, Arlong is like purple or gray. It's very different from his original color, and his nose is so much shorter. So maybe it's too difficult to have such a long prosthetic as a nose. It's just impossible to do. That's why they made it so short. It just makes him look a lot less terrifying, especially because the original Arlong has very jagged nose. He's supposed to be, I guess, a sawfish, right? That's the Arlong pirates. They're the kind of, he's the sawfish. That's why Nami has a sawfish tattoo. So an original sawfish in real life, that actually has a nose that looked like Arlong's nose. I can see why they did it. So I'm fine with it looking a bit different. But the fact that it's actually so short, that I have an issue with. It just doesn't look terrifying at all. It looks kind of silly. One Piece is an immersive story, and the fact that the fishmen are playing poker with Nami, I mean, the fact that she cheats them is totally correct, but the immersive aspect was broken a little bit because they're playing poker. I'm not so crazy about that. I actually want to get your opinion about Arlong Park if you're familiar with the source material, especially if you've seen the anime. Arlong Park is not an amusement park. It's obviously a base, and it has that main building, which looks great in the live action. That's totally accurate. But why is it some kind of kids' fair? You have these terrifying fishmen that are some of the strongest beings in the story of One Piece, and they're playing games like Shark Attack. Like, great, it's Shark Attack because they're fishmen. But why is it this kind of carnival and they're all just like hanging out there? I mean, I guess it's cool, but I don't know. It really makes the fishmen seem a lot less scary. I'm not sure why they did that. With Arlong, I haven't said too many positive things about him. I still have to give credit to the voice actor. It's not his fault the way he looks. He really looks kind of, Arlong to me looks like a rebellious teenager who's got a bad sense of fashion. But it's pretty accurate based on the original character. But the voice actor is really good. The voice actor is so good, and we got the sha ha 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 ha, which is Arlong's laugh. Unfortunately, he only does it one time, but at least we got that. Next up, although we're getting too much of Garp, they've introduced him quite early, but they're just giving us too many Garp scenes. It's a little bit too much. I like the fact that they've lured him with meat at the Baratie when he's there questioning Zeph about where Luffy went. I like that scene. That was well done because both actors are great. The only thing I'm not okay with is how Zeph suddenly seems to be this kind of prophet who's preaching on behalf of Luffy. He is the chosen one. This new generation of pirates are the chosen ones. It's their time. What? That's not at all Zeph. It's not at all Zeph. Why? Just why? Let us decide for ourselves. You don't have to be so direct about it. Now, let's talk about Koko Village, or Kokoyashi in Japanese. Koko Village, it would be very expensive to make it the way it was in the anime. I'm okay with these kind of rustic tribal huts. I'm fine with that. I actually like the detail that one of those huts was flipped over. We later see there's a flashback episode where Arlong was the one that actually flipped over that house. Shows how powerful he is. It's a good scene. I really have an issue though with Nojiko, so Nami's sister. Nojiko comes and like spits at her feet. That was really out of character for me. That also made me go, huh? Like, what? She's like, choo, choo. That's not Nojiko at all. Nojiko has to be much more cute. She's really kind and much more of a cute character. In fact, when it comes to the relationship between Nami, Koko Village, with Genzo, with Nojiko, that was not done nearly as well as they could have. Many things are quite accurate. The timeline is different. For example, how late Nojiko in the live action actually finds out. She finds out literally in this episode that Nami is actually trying to save up 100 million berries so she could buy the village. They've known for a long time. I gotta be clear about the villagers the whole time, almost from the beginning. Genzo, the villagers, they knew, but they hid it from Nami. They knew why she actually joined the Arlong Pirates, why she was helping them, why she was there. They knew, but they never shared that information with her. They never told her because they didn't want to put pressure on Nami. They didn't want to make her feel like she has the weight of the village and their hope all rests on her shoulders. So the fact that everyone only just realizes now, especially Nojiko, who didn't even give her the benefit of the doubt and never had that conversation, it just seemed quite unrealistic to me. And unfortunately, we never are explained why Genzo has this pinwheel on his hat. And that's a missed opportunity because Genzo, in the attack, we know that his face was slashed up, but when Nami was a little girl, and Genzo was always a nice guy, but he was kind of the leader. We know he's the leader there at the village. His face was very scary, and it would always make her cry. So what he did was he actually put the pinwheel on his hat, so it would actually make her smile and make her laugh. So I'm a little bit surprised. If they show the pinwheel on his head, Genzo is an accurate character. He looked good. It adds a lot of backstory and explains Nami's relationship with the people. For now, it just felt a little bit shallow. Moving ahead, I want to talk once more about Arlong Park and the fishmen. If they could have hired Weta Workshop to do the prosthetics for the fishmen, that would have looked so much better. Maybe it's too expensive? With regards to the whole story though, I have to give credit to them for including a lot of the key points and being quite accurate to the story. For example, when Belle-Mère dies, yes, she actually dies sacrificing herself in front of Nami and Nojiko. That's why she's so scarred, Nami. Belle-Mère dies right in front of her. Belle-Mère, her adopted mother, despite the fact that Nami was a difficult child, Belle-Mère would rather die than deny that those two girls are her daughters. Was her death necessary? That's a whole different discussion, but at the same time, the fact that she stood up for his principles is a very core theme in One Piece. I'm really a fan of them keeping that scene and showing that Arlong basically executed her in front of the two girls. That was a good decision. What I really like, actually, even though this is a totally new scene, is we have Helmeppo and Koby are kind of at the Baratie, at the bar, and they're doing shots. I like that. I like that they're really working on this relationship. They are showing too much of those two characters, unfortunately. But if they're going to show the characters, at least this was a fun scene. It does bother me a little bit that while they're outside doing shots, the only reason that's even possible is because inside, Zeff is talking to Garp about Luffy. And it just doesn't make sense that Zeff would say Luffy reminds him of Gold Roger. It's way too early to say something like that. Why? Because they smile, they laugh, they're carefree. Way too early. Luffy has done nothing yet. Nothing. Gold Roger was the king of the pirates. Luffy's literally done nothing. There's so many people he has to confront. And up until this point, remember, Luffy basically just lost to Arlong. Why? Laying it on too thick. Laying it on way too thick, this narrative of Luffy being the future king of the pirates. Yeah, we can read between the lines in the story. You don't need to spell it out for us like we're idiots. A couple quick points before I wrap this up. Number one, how is Nojiko able to swing a shovel and bust open a chest like that? The one where Nami had her 100 million berry, her life savings? How is she able to bust that open? That chest is very weak. Weird. Is that lazy, the way they did that? And second point, final scene with Nami asking for Luffy's help. That was very accurate, very good. Luffy's always been very carefree, happy, positive, but he is serious in this moment. He is serious when he grabs Nami's hand as she's trying to stab, she's trying to stab herself, I don't know why, but she's trying to remove Arlong's tattoo after she's found out that he betrayed her and obviously stole the money. And she's lost all her hope, her plan. And she asks Luffy for help. That's great. He gives her the hat, and then they leave. And then in the next episode, we're gonna get one of these iconic moments in One Piece. I hope so. If they cut out this iconic moment, I'm gonna be pissed off. I really am. Well, that's it for now. If you like the video, consider liking. If you want to see more content, consider subscribing. If you totally disagree with me, then dislike the video or at least share your comments down below.